The Communication Workers Union says it's taken the post office to the CCMA tomorrow for over unresolved employee issues. The union is demanding equal pay for equal work and permanent employment of workers. The post office was placed under administration last year following a crippling strike by employees. The CWU says it also wants the public protector to release a long-awaited report into corruption at the post office. Well, CEO of the Post Office, Mark Barnes, joins me now. Mark, thanks very much indeed for coming in.
Thanks for your interest.
Well, it's that time of the year where one gets that SMS to say that you have to renew your post box. Are people responding favourably, or are they still haunted by the upheavals of what had happened recently?
Well, I think they're cautious, but I think that the message is clear. You know, the post office won't be solved from the top down. It's going to be solved from the bottom up.
Yeah.
It's going to be solved by people that work there believing that they've got a purpose, an economic and a business purpose. And so we want everyone that's a stakeholder in the post office, including all of our clients, and we've got the biggest client base in South Africa, to be part of that solution. So if you want to be part of the solution, hey, we need some of that PO box number money. I think the line has been drawn in the sand, and we've got a lot to do to settle the past. And we're rigorously at work at settling the past. But it's about settling the past so that we can move on to a very different future.
I asked the question because consumer or client confidence is actually very important in this turnaround structure plan, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It's vital. No business is any business without client base. And so I think there has been a fundamental loss of faith and loss of trust in the post office, and there are a whole bunch of reasons behind that. I think that the deployment of capital and whether we've kept up to date with all of our payments and whether we've been able to do so from a funding perspective, all of that is we've lagged behind it. But I'll tell you this: I've been there for a short time. We're not dysfunctional. We're quite capable of operating, and there's an element of catch-up. There's an element of catch-up across all fields. I think in terms of capital, we've got creditors which are outstanding, and so the actions that they naturally bring to bear is to close things down, to clog up the process, and they're entitled to do that. And so, I've already engaged with government about what sort of capital we need to fix the past. But then I think from then on, our issue is we're going to be raising money to invest in the post office, not to pay as an expense. And I think if people get into that discussion and into that vision, then the employees will feel less inclined, to argue about the past and more inclined to work together about the future.
Well, what sort of reaction have you been getting from government on those requests?
Well, it's early days. I've been there 3 days, so give them a chance and give me a chance. Listen, in my engagements with government to get me into the position in the first place, I've had nothing but enthusiastic response at all levels, because I think we're looking, all of us in South Africa, for a case study of business and government and labour finding solutions to the challenges and starting to look outward at the challenges instead of inward at each other. And so there's little point in this country bemoaning the status quo of those kinds of relationship. Unless we all start facing outwards. We've got competitors. I mean, take the post office. The courier companies, the logistics companies, the other private enterprise companies that are operating in competition to the post office are doing so, quite a lot of them, because we've enabled it by not producing that service ourselves. So we have to earn back the right to our economics. In the same way, we have to earn back the respect of government and the respect of our clients. And so we have to earn the right to request capital. I think the days of just going to the government and saying we're a state-owned enterprise, save us, those are over and they're inappropriate. I see a world where we'll become capable of funding our own future because we've got an appropriate economic model. Post offices around the world today are modern logistics, financial services, e-commerce deliverers in their communities, and some of them enjoy very high ratings on stock markets.
And you've said that before. You said that if you look at South Africa, 70% of the income comes from mail. You look at some places like Britain.
The world, sort of the leading countries, it's more like 30%.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk about Postbank. What are we doing with Postbank?
Well, at this stage, Postbank has been appropriately ring-fenced, so that it doesn't, become involved in any of the, cash flow or other challenges that might be presented at the post office at this point. But Postbank's for me, a critical element of the future, of the post office in terms of financial services and things. So we have to, there's certain compliance and capitalization and capital adequacy and holding company criteria, which we have to satisfy the Reserve Bank that we can now meet, both in terms of money and expertise and strategy. And I think if we don't produce an appropriate strategy, which I believe we've got, then I can fully understand why the Reserve Bank won't say, well, go out and play, go out and be a real full bank. But we have got a bank, and one of the principal advantages of having a bank is you've got a relatively low cost of capital, because the deposits as a rate of interest is relatively low. Now, the only reason you've got that is because people have confidence that their money is not at risk. So we have to convince the Reserve Bank that that's the case. And then the growth strategy, I'm already convinced of. So that's not a challenge in my view.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. CEO of the Post Office, Mark Barnes, thanks indeed for coming in.
No, thank you for your interest.